Welcome, everybody. It is the Wednesday edition of Talkback, brought to you by Rogers & Company Fine Jewelry, offering beautiful, unique fine jewelry at 3550 Mullen Road across from Super Walmart. Deep Roots Medicinals. They're veteran-owned and operated. Contact Brian, a physiologist of Deep Roots Medicinals, 531-7461. Also brought to you by Bitterroot Motors, doing it right for more than 42 years. Office solutions and services where they're locally owned and operated. Solutions for every office. The Mustard Seed Restaurant, Automotive Cutting Edge at 1510 Bulwer, 542-2218. And by Transport Equipment, your headquarters for RV service, maintenance, and repair. All right, welcome, everybody. It's the Wednesday edition of Talkback. The one and only John King is over there. Hey, John.
Hey, Peter. How are you doing this morning?
And the one and only.
Oh, yes.
That's Walt Kero. Hey, buddy.
Hey, thank you, guys. Good morning.
Kero Byington and Associates.
Yes. Downtown.
He's the tax man.
Yes. Anyway,
but but you have very kindly given up for a few minutes of your precious time with us to talk about a big story everybody's talking about in Missoula today.
Yeah, we had the story that we got basically a PDF, an Acrobat file from a local attorney yesterday. Wrote the story up. It's a human rights complaint at the sheriff's department, and it's pretty. I don't know. It kind of reads like a dime novel or something you'd read at the back of a book, a salient tease almost of what might be going on there. And the problem is, you read all this stuff and you wonder how much of it is true, how much of it is just meant to cast aspersions. As Walt was pointing out earlier, these human rights complaints can really carry almost anything, right?
oh, yeah, and any complaint that gets filed with a court, especially with the court, because I've been the subject of a lawsuit, and in the course of that lawsuit, the complaints against you, they list you for, they'll accuse you of being an elder abuser or a child molester, everything. They'll throw the kitchen sink at you, and it's like they have a free license to say that stuff.
Yeah. Well, the complaint is 20 pages long. Right off the bat, my judgment of the complaint is there are definitely some things, especially towards the end, which you'll hear in a second, that sound like, even the attorney is caging their words, and it's like hearsay almost, But there's stuff up front that, if you know about what's gone on at the sheriff's department, seems to have at least a shred of truth to it. So I'm actually going to just read from this and give you guys and everybody that's listening because a lot of what I will be reading is actual text from the complaint, the human rights complaint against Sheriff T.J. McDermott, and you'll get an idea of what the complaint is, and then we can talk about it, okay? So here goes. These are my words to start things off. The recently released human rights complaint by Captain Mike Dominic against Sheriff T.J. McDermott pulls no punches and accuses the new sheriff of doling out benefits to political supporters while punishing political opponents. The two men at the center of the unlawful retaliation complaint are Sheriff T.J. McDermott and former captain of detectives, now captain of the warehouse, Mike Dominic, whose complaint recounts many incidents of concern over many years at the Missoula County Sheriff's Department. Although McDermott and Dominic take center stage, the complaint features the names of nearly a dozen sheriff's deputies, and many of the names involved are on other lawsuits currently filed in Missoula County or Lewis and Clark County. Below is an excerpt from the complaint highlighting the extensive nature of the, quote, enemies list accusation. Here's a quote from the text here from the complaint. Captain Dominic's treatment is part of McDermott's pattern, practice, or policy of maintaining an enemies list of those who either opposed or even did not actively support McDermott's campaign for sheriff during the primary and general elections. McDermott has, in the short time since taking office, subjected at least 5 sworn deputies to this treatment, 3 of whom have worked the internal affairs or professional standards function at Missoula County since 2002. Captain Brad Giffen felt pressured to leave when they told him his position in professional standards would be eliminated. Under Sheriff Clark, the former captain of professional standards, was demoted to patrol deputy and stuck on the night shift. Captain Taylor was terminated as captain of patrol and moved to an entirely new created position of administrative captain, in quotes, to perform non-law enforcement functions previously handled by a civilian employee. Former Deputy Paige Pavallone was demoted from public information officer, labeled as Brady impaired, and then fired. Captain Dominic despite his expertise, leadership, and skills of service with distinction, has been banished to captain of the warehouse in a remote building behind the jail and given a low-level, non-supervisory job best suited to an evidence technician. Here's my words again. The details of the complaint also claim that before Dominic was made, quote, captain of the warehouse, end quote, he was given added pressure as chief deputy coroner in an effort to make an impossible work environment. That's a direct quote from the reading, as is this. Prior to McDermott, Captain Dominic had 12 coroners under him, and they would rotate taking coroners' calls to give one another essential relief from work that is highly stressful. In January, Captain Dominic was directed by McDermott that he was to be on call for coroner duty during his entire 4-day, 40-hour work week. During this time period, he took every coroner call that came in between 6 o'clock and 4 o'clock p.m. The complaint goes on to say that Dominic reached out to the new authorities for help, saying that the added stress from the changes at the coroner's office was killing him, end quote. Another notable aspect of the complaint includes an unnamed sheriff's deputy accused of multiple sexual improprieties that Dominic thought could lead to a potential public relations nightmare, end quote. Now, this is where it gets a little seamy, and I should say that even in the complaint, it reports these as unsigned complaints. Basically, things that had been talked about.
In other words, it's rumor.
Basically, yeah. But that they're saying basically Captain Dominic had heard multiple rumors about another deputy and was keeping an eye on them. Another thing that I don't bring across in this that is heavily featured in the text of the complaint is something called the Code of Silence. Basically, this kind of silent contract between deputies that if one of the deputies gets in trouble, you won't talk about it. You won't get someone else in trouble that's on the force if you think they are.
Which was actually a Chuck Norris movie back in the 80s. Seriously. I mean, it was. That's exactly what it was about, a code of silence.
The Code of Silence.
Yeah, well, yeah, anyway, it's basically it's officers looking out for each other so that it doesn't get out. So
silence would keep its mouth shut in front of Chuck Norris.
Anyway, so go ahead.
Okay, here it goes. Dominic reportedly went to the new authorities during the transition phase, advising them to keep an eye on the deputy in question. But instead of questioning others involved, McDermott reportedly went to the accused deputy and said that Dominic was, quote, saying bad things about him, end quote. The complaints against the deputy in question were apparently all unsigned, end quote. The HR complaint lists them as follows. Here we go from the complaint again. The activity of the deputy centered around complaints of improprieties with females, causing this deputy's termination from 2 different departments. Accusations of a sexual relationship with a young cadet, reports of sexual activity going on in the deputy's car outside of 2 different local businesses, unwanted sexual advances to a county employee, and the last and most recent, having teammates hold a woman at a traffic stop because he recognized her from Facebook and wanted to meet her. Okay, that sounds like something you'd get out of an old Greek movie or, like Super Troopers or something. I have no idea if it's true or not, and I don't think really anybody does. Even Dominic, who made the complaint, doesn't know if it's true from what we can read.
So my question, why the hell did they put it in there?
Well, I'm
sorry. That angers me. I mean, if and I can understand. I spoke with Sheriff McDermott yesterday.
The problem here is, Peter, if you are in charge and you have complaints, the reason it's put in there isn't because they were just rumors floating around the house. The reason it was put in there is because during the transition phase, Mike Dominic went apparently to Jason Johnson and said, "Hey," he was in charge of the ethics of the force, right? He said, "Hey, here's some of the ethics problems we have. Here's some of the issues you'll be dealing with, and here's one of my concerns that we've heard a lot of rumors about this."
Right.
Instead of, taking this and dealing with it as an ethics issue in the background, apparently, they went and told the person who was apparently a big supporter, political supporter. And that's one of the reasons why it gets into this is because they're trying to show political supporters get promoted despite any kind of negative atmosphere in the force, and political opponents get demoted.
Okay, so we're up against a break. So what we're going to do when we come back, we get a little taste here. If you want to read the whole thing, you can. It's right there on our website. What we're going to do is I had a chance to visit with Sheriff McDermott yesterday evening about 5:30, and we visited for about 3 minutes on the phone, and I have that entire conversation on tape here. I'm going to play it when we get back so you can hear Sheriff McDermott's unedited response to the release of this document. So we'll have that. In all fairness, I think that's only fair. So,
I totally think it's
so.
fair.
So
yeah.
we're going to come right back, and if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. If this wasn't the sheriff's department, if it was the University of Montana, and there were rumors about a student that was molesting people or was doing things, sexual improprieties that weren't supposed to be done on campus, and the person in charge didn't do anything about it and went to the man and told him, hey, there's some suspicions about you. People are saying bad things. There would be a different story, wouldn't there?
Okay, we're going to come right back after this. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. We've been talking about the Human Rights Bureau complaint that was released yesterday by Captain Mike Dominic. He's former captain of detectives and still, by the way, the deputy coroner. But he still retains his rank as captain and pay. But the claim is that he was simply moved from one position to another, not demoted.
Well, so his claim is it sounds different than when McDermott says it, because in the complaint at the very end he says, actually I'll just finish reading because it's just like one last little paragraph here. Right. In the final paragraphs of the complaint, Dominic notes that he is the, quote, highest paid hourly employee in the sheriff's office, end quote, now faced with cleaning toilets and other menial tasks while the captain of detectives position remains empty. In a final appeal, he asks the Human Rights Bureau to investigate and enjoin McDermott and the county of Missoula from discriminating and retaliating against others like him in the sheriff's office who might disagree with McDermott's politics.
Okay, so with that in mind, I've had a chance to hear that. Let's go to the conversation I had last night with Sheriff T.J. McDermott, and this is what he had to say after we just kind of introduced, here's what we're going to talk about. So go ahead.
The citizens of Missoula County elected me to be their sheriff, and it's unfortunate that we have certain distractions from current or former members of the department. There has been no retaliation against Mr. Dominic for his support of my opponent in the last election, and rest assured, we're working diligently every day to be the best law enforcement agency that we can be, and our pledge to Missoula County is to run the sheriff's office as effectively and efficiently as possible. And really, Peter, Mr. Dominic's allegations just need to be addressed in the appropriate forum.
Okay, and that would be where?
The Human Rights Bureau.
Okay. Now, I'm assuming that just as when you and Under Sheriff Johnson were involved with the Human Rights Bureau, they'll send over an investigator and talk with all the parties involved. Is that correct?
That's true. And I respect Captain Dominic's right to file a complaint, but there's a process for handling these types of complaints. And, that process does not include Captain Dominic or his attorney deliberately distributing their complaint, which is full of outrageous and slanderous statements to local media outlets before a proper investigation can be completed by the Human Rights Bureau.
So, anything else you'd like to say?
Yes, Captain Dominic retained his rank and pay after the election. He also retained his position as our chief deputy coroner, and he supervises about a dozen other deputy coroners. He's also in charge of our secure evidence facility. He performs our crime scene management services. All of these duties, Peter, are very important, meaningful work, and provide a great service and benefit to our community.
He was the captain of detectives at one point, and then before you took office, correct?
He was.
All right. Now, is there currently a captain of detectives, or is that post remained unfilled yet?
Currently, right now, we do not have a captain of detectives. Right now, we have a lieutenant's position in detectives, and it's just a budgetary reason. There's a limited number of positions within our budget that we can pay for.
So, going forward from here, TJ, what will be your basically daily discipline to keep things moving and keep the Sheriff's Department operating as it should?
Well, it's important for your listeners to know that, every day we're working very hard to provide this community with a sheriff's office that we can be proud of and trust. This stuff is definitely a distraction from the outstanding work that's being done daily by the men and women of the sheriff's office. We've filled our vacancies, we've updated our uniforms and equipments, and, we're getting back on track to providing this community with a very good sheriff's office.
Okay, that was the conversation I had last night with Sheriff T.J. McDermott. So,
And it is pretty fascinating. I would really love to ask the follow-up question to Mr. McDermott. You just accused him of slander, of using slanderous talk. I would like you to tell us what you believe is slander. And see, that's the big problem. I understand that all this will happen in a court, perhaps, but it's very likely that just like T.J. McDermott's own human rights complaint, it will never get through the court, and the public will never know. Because what will likely happen is the complaint will get looked at by the Human Rights Bureau. They'll make a recommendation for a court hearing, and then the county will settle. So we'll never know what really went on. The public won't get to know, probably. That's exactly what happened with T.J. McDermott in his own case. And there's a sense for a lot of people in the public that this is something that has been going on in this sheriff's office for quite some time. I mean, if you've been following the lawsuits back and forth over political disagreements, that's what TJ's own lawsuit was about, like less than 3 years ago.
it was 2013, yeah.
So now we have another political disagreement coming back at him. I thought it was kind of enlightening to read some of the Facebook posts on the story because many of these are from ex-sheriff's deputies. So I'm going to read a couple real quick. How much time do we got?
1 minute.
Okay. This one's from Rick. He says, for those that voted for the clown McDermott, you got what you deserve. Corrupt officers promoted as payback for their support. Enjoy. I'm just going down the list here.
Okay.
TJ says, hey, cops, have to have fun too. David, here's a little bit more deeper one. David says, when I was a deputy at the MCSO, in the not-so-distant past, human rights violations were things that happened in faraway places in Uganda or Burma. Deputy sheriffs in more peaceful places like Missoula, Montana would suck it up when things didn't go exactly as they wanted at work. For instance, if someone was reassigned from public affairs to another job within their rating because they just announced that they were running for public office, it would be assumed a conflict of interest was eliminated and the credibility of the department and reputation of the deputy in question was protected. Sometimes you got reassigned for no reason at all, except it balanced a schedule or made better use of human resources. Certainly no one got a settlement to fund their campaign. It didn't even rate a grievance because the boss received the right to reassign you. You sucked it up and you went to work because that is what you did to be part of the team. On the other hand, these things set a new precedence, and in the new world of entitlements created by the current sheriff and his undersheriff before they were elected, it is the new normal. I suppose it's a human rights violation if you don't get what you think you deserve, or if you think things in your career don't go the way that you thought they should go. Clearly, this sheriff has no problem assigning personnel wherever he sees fit. The irony of this is that I don't blame Mike Dominic one bit for filing this human rights violation. He is left with no choice, as the former adult channels of communications apparently seem to be closed to intelligent conversation by the new administration. Clearly, a human rights violation isn't what it used to be, but by whatever name it's called, a turd by any other name still smells like a turd. And Mike certainly does a good job of pointing that out, that there's a turd in the sheriff's office. So
Okay, well, we just need to reiterate the fact that the... Hold
these
on.
are not the opinions
Hold
of the
on.
hosts.
I'm just going to say that in all seriousness, the opinions expressed either on our Facebook page or by the people that call our show are not necessarily those of this staff or any of our sponsors.
Here's one I would agree with, though.
Real quick.
For sure. Angela says, all of this needs to stop. We all need to work together to create a department that people can trust and respect.
Yes, stop it. That's the term.
We'll be right back. We're just going to calm down a little bit here. We're not going to worry. We're just going to be happy. La 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 la. Okay, everybody dance now. We go. Just dance around the office there. Okay.
Let it out of your shoulders. Deep breath.
721-1290 is our number. If you'd like to call and comment on this, we have like a minute left, so we got to give away some coffee.
721-1290 is our number, by the way. Yeah, let's give away some coffee. Oh,
Wait, we have calls.
we got a call. Let's take that call.
Go ahead and grab that. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. We can give away some coffee anytime. But let's get Dave on the line. Dave, we don't have a whole lot of time. You're on. Go ahead, sir. We have 1 minute.
Good morning. I just want to comment that if you look back in history, there's been so many of these county and state workers that file all these lawsuits, and, I mean, they just get these golden parachutes. Tons of money from the taxpayers because their feelings were hurt.
Yeah, let's just get rid of this and settle, right?
Well, yeah, and it's like maybe I should have went into that line of work. Then I could get my retirement when I get, My feelings hurt. I mean, I realize they need to have their voice heard, but this settling for tens and twenties and hundreds of thousands of dollars that are paid out by the taxpayers is ridiculous.
All right, Dave.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If you're a public employee...
30 seconds.
Okay. If you're a public employee, would you have a problem if you were put into a lower position because of your political position?
I would, and like I said, I think they have a right to voice and have their rights, but why is it that in the long run, like you said earlier, nobody's going to know what happened, but somehow somebody gets a big check?
Yeah. Hey, we're out of time. Thank you, Dave. We appreciate your call. We're going to take a quick break for the top of the hour. Then we're going to talk with our good friend Walt Kero. It's
Show
the reason
me
he's
the
here
money.
today. We're going to come right back. Welcome, everybody. Back to Talk Back. Brought to you by Deep Roots Medicinals, offering alternative and natural medicine to treat a wide variety of conditions. Veteran-owned and operated. Contact Brian, a physiologist, of Deep Roots Medicinals, 531-7461. Also brought to you by Rogers & Company Fine Jewelry, Bitterroot Motors, Office Solutions and Services, the Mustard Seed Restaurant, Automotive Cutting Edge, and by Transport Equipment. All right, we are back on Talk Back, and now, of course, the reason Walt Kero is here is to talk about money.
Yeah, we'll talk taxes. It's so boring compared to what we just went through.
Not really.
Hey, but you're going to need to run that disclaimer about every 5 minutes. You keep talking like that first half hour.
I know.
Why,
Yeah.
yay.
Anyway, so you brought a lovely
Oh, I got
picture
a stack of stuff.
of the man who looks just like me, Warren Buffett there.
Warren Buffett, yeah. And I think, if I remember right, I started talking about this last month, but
Okay.
but I want to get back into it a little bit, only from the standpoint of President Obama has been, promoting, propagandizing relative to the the rich paying their fair share.
Right.
And it's an easy thing to promote.
What's low-hanging fruit?
The rich should pay their fair share. Well, from my perspective, preparing tax returns and looking at it over the years, the rich have been paying more than their fair share, but it depends upon your point of view. So rather than get into a big argument about whether or not they're paying the fair share, the president should be saying, this is what I think a fair share is. Because right now, the rich are paying, in most cases, not all, but in most cases, 40% federal tax. That's the maximum rate on individual income tax, 39.6. And then typical state might be 6 or 7% income tax. And then they're paying property taxes and Lord knows sales taxes. So I'm sure and Social Security tax. And by the time you get done with that, you're over 50%. So what in hell is fair about a tax rate that you're paying that's more than 50%? Because I don't think more than 50% is fair. I think it's confiscatory is my term for it. And so I think all those folks out there who don't think the rich are paying their fair share should speak up right now and tell us. Maybe we should do a survey from our listening audience here of what they consider a fair share.
So you look at it at a percentage?
Yeah, a percentage of their income.
Okay,
Yeah.
so now some would probably say from the Wall Street, the anti-Wall Street crowd. What's it called? The
1%.
Occupy Wall Street. The Occupy
Yeah.
Wall Street crowd. Okay, so let's say you got a guy like Warren Buffett that makes $50 million. Let's just makes $50 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
So what if he pays half in taxes? He's still got $25 million more than almost anybody else. So, pony up, baby. Let's go. I'm paying 30 to 40% of my income. Why can't he pay more?
Yeah,
Okay.
why can't he?
So-
I'll give you their take. This is a recent article.
Okay.
This is from Think Progress, a progressive website or blog. And it goes, the title of the piece is New Data Offers First Infuriating Glimpse at How the Richest 0.001% Pay in Income Taxes. Here we are. Tax day doesn't sting much if you're on the gilded edge, according to new data on how the top 100th of 1% and the top 1,000th of 1% of all filers pay for income taxes. People who make tens of millions of dollars enjoy falling income tax rates and ballooning wealth for a decade as middle-class taxpayers floundered. The new Internal Revenue Service data helps illustrate the logic behind Senator Bernie Sanders' call for radically reshaping the American income tax system to create pricey new brackets for extremely high earners. The numbers provided a deeper look into the highest income echelon, breaking out data on income tax rates and total yearly earnings in previously unpublished detail. In the last year of the Bush tax cuts, there were well over 1,000 people who reported more than $60 million in earnings, but paid federal income tax rates far below 20%. So, well, let's just start there because we both know you're a tax guy. Just because the tax on the main headline might be 50%, that's not always what you're going to end up paying, right?
Right.
There's all kinds of sequestrous routes to get around.
Well, sure. In Warren Buffett's case, and in the
and
case
all these rich people have those routes available to them. They're basically open highways if you have the money to pay for the attorneys and the geniuses like CPA Walt Kero to come in and help you organize
Boy,
things.
I don't know about being a genius, but what's going on here is a long time ago, 15, 20 years ago, they put in place capital gains taxes. So that rate is 15%. So a lot of the rich have a lot of capital gains. So that income is taxed at 15%. Now it gets as high as 23.8. But the point being is of the federal take, the top 1% in the country, and these are figures from the IRS, the top 1% generate 19% of all the reported income. But in terms of their share of federal tax, they're paying 35%. So, depending upon who you're dealing with and who you're talking to, it's easy to spin numbers to say, oh, the rich aren't paying their fair share. Well, I beg to differ because from what I can see, they probably pay a little bit more than their fair share. So the bottom line is our current income tax system at the federal level is very progressive.
Now let me tell you this. You had asked for the public to give you a direct call. What is a fair amount? Bernie Sanders, as I would say, he's an honorable progressive. He's not one of these people that hides from what he believes.
He doesn't sneak up on you.
He doesn't change his opinion every 3 years depending on the election results, like Hillary. This is a guy. He's fairly face forward on what he believes, and you can have an honorable discussion with him because he doesn't waffle on you, and he will answer questions apparently. So anyway, here he goes. In late May, Sanders called for restoring top income tax rates to as high as 90%. The graduated income tax system means that policymakers could create new tax brackets up at that level without raising taxes on everyone below whatever level of wealth they choose.
Now, weren't they at 90% as late as
Eisenhower?
Eisenhower, Reagan?
Yeah, it was like 90%. But the issue was you had a lot more itemized deductions. You had a lot more deductions back then.
Right.
They've taken those away.
Okay.
So if they go back to 90%, it's a whole different ball game.
We're going to take a break. We have Catherine and Mike who are waiting. We have one line open for you. 721-1290. You want to give away some coffee on that line?
Yeah, we have one line. Let's do it. Coffee. Okay. Give me a call, 721-1290. We will take 90% of your coffee. Just joking. You get the whole cup, 100%. Also, you get a slab of toast on the side and a free spread at the Rocket Supply. In the Garden City Garden Supply. Also, if you show up there this week, they have free tickets that they're giving away to random customers to the Dave Chappelle appearance here in Missoula. So kind of a cool deal.
Here we go. We'll be right back. My first job was a fully adored rock star. Not really. 721-1290.
Fully adored.
Yeah. That's John King over there. I'm not sure where that came
All
from.
air guitar enthusiasts.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Adored.
I'm an air drummer, though, more than anything else. Let's get to the phones because our folks have been waiting very patiently through the break. So, Catherine, good morning. You're up.
Good morning. Good morning, Walt.
Good morning, Catherine. How you doing?
Oh, just fine, thank you.
All right.
Okay, the majority of new billionaires, apparently, and a lot of the tech ones, support the Democrats or the progressives. They make a huge, of course, amount of money.
It's new money guilt.
Well, Catherine, that's an important point because I just got done reading Clinton Cash, and I think it's just cronyism. It's just crony capitalism.
It is.
They're just sucking up to who they think they can get a lucrative contract or make more money from.
Elon Musk is a prime example, actually, with Tesla and SpaceX and some of his other little businesses.
I thought it was just a cologne.
Elon Musk.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Neat.
Well, you need
one
to
of
smell
the
like a
things
man.
is that there are so many tax strategies, as you well know, being an accountant, like putting the majority of your money into advocacy foundations that pay huge amounts of the money back in terms of owning the apartments and the houses and the transportation and the corporate jets and that then are not taxed because they're foundation owned, but they are used by the upper echelon of the foundation, right?
That's been known to occur.
Yeah.
I don't see much of that around here in Missoula, but I've heard stories of that happening in the bigger cities.
I'd like to give it a try. Go ahead, Catherine. Sorry.
There are also, tax-free bonds and the hedge funds. There, some of them are tax-free, but they make a huge amount of money. 12 to 20% sometimes. Walt, I wanted to ask you, what is the compliance rate in the U.S. versus a country with an extremely high tax rate? Do you know?
Well, I think our compliance rate compared to others, and I have no basis in fact, my gut level tells me that our compliance, because we have a voluntary system, is probably higher than most other countries. Now, I have no basis in that because I don't prepare tax returns in Germany or, for those folks. But I do know their economies are more strict. They have value-added taxes, and so they nick you each level of manufacture or preparation of a product. And but it's the whole thing is in those countries they take more of a taxpayers' income than they do here. And so what's the difference is that you have more freedom in the USA as compared to like if you were a citizen of Germany. And there'll be people who argue with me on that. Oh, well, they provide all this stuff. Yeah, well, it's they say, well, it's free stuff. Well, it's no such thing as free stuff because you got socialized medicine and whatnot. And so you got more money getting thrown into a bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy takes their haircut. And you just end up with that stuff. So the higher the tax, the less freedom you have. That's just my mantra.
Well, it also seems like if the higher the tax, the lower the compliance rate, because isn't there a mean or average that always comes out or comes into play, and it's around 18% no matter how high the tax rate is?
Well, Catherine, I think you brought that up before, and I haven't read that information that gets to that, but I will support.
I'll dig it up and send it to you.
You guys are talking, if I'm not mistaken, about the Laffer curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Catherine's exactly right, and I support this notion that if you raise taxes high enough, you're gonna lose compliance. Right now. People that have to pay self-employment tax and income tax at the same time, of which Peter knows very well. But you have plumbers, electricians, waitresses, waiters, all those people who get cash income that don't pay tax because they're not reporting it. Now, technically, they're supposed to report it, but because of the high tax rates, they try to operate under the table.
Well, at least a portion thereof. Right?
Yeah, or whatever it happens to be, because whatever the law says that's income. Now, if you don't report it, well, then you're in violation of the law. But that goes on, and that happens because the self-employment tax and the income tax rate. If you're making $50,000 net in a sole proprietorship, you're at 50% tax really quick.
All right, Kath,
exactly.
we got to run.
You.
Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Mike, you're up next. Hi, Mike.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, my view on taxes is simply this. Everybody pays. I don't care if you're on Social Security or what the heck you're on. Everybody has to pay taxes because this is the most absurd thing you have. 50% of these people don't pay any taxes, and the other 50% pay the taxes, and the lower 50% elect all the dingbats in Washington and in the state levels. So if you're gonna vote, you should at least have to pay a tax. And there's one other outfit that I really take offense at, and that's these nonprofits. They don't pay taxes on dang near anything and everything, and yet they're going to ruin this country with this nonprofit because you can walk out the door and be a nonprofit. So
Yeah.
I'm just sick and tired of. I can afford to pay a few bucks in taxes, and I just think everybody else can. So this is absurd, is what the way they run this country. When we're going to get the rich people. Well, the rich people are the one who provide the jobs and the innovation to make stuff. The government never provides anything but a rat hole to pour their money down.
All right, Mike. Thanks for the call, man.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it. All right, we're up against a break.
Yeah, I got some comments on Facebook when we get back.
Okay, and we also have Dave was waiting on to visit. We also have two lines open.
And
just
two
for you.
lines open at 721-1290.
Ooh, I like it. We'll be right back. This is Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. We do have callers waiting to visit with us. John King's over there answering the phone right now. In fact, Walt Kero Byington and Associates CPAs.
269 West Front, Missoula,
Fantastic.
Montana.
All right, let's get Dave on the line first. Dave, you've been holding the longest. Hi.
Yeah, good morning. About Social Security tax.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to remind people that, someone like Warren Buffett only pays in Social Security 1 week a year.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the rich people creating jobs, they make sure they pay a lot of taxes, but they're not investing in new equipment, new jobs. They're sitting on their money.
Wait. How do you know that?
Because Wall Street Journal, several articles are saying that money going back to stockholders is up and investment in new equipment isn't.
Why do you suppose that is?
People aren't buying things. People can't afford it. The middle class, in my mind, is where you can invent a new machine. You invent the most wonderful machine in the world, but if no one has any money to buy it, the machine goes useless.
Well, now, let me ask you this. Could, and please consider this, could it be that because of the uncertainty that we've faced for the last 6, 7, 8 years, not knowing what to expect as a business owner, okay? So maybe the reason I'm sitting on my money is because I don't want it to go to waste, thinking that as soon as I invest in something, there's some new restriction or environmental concern or whatever will come in and rob me of my profit. I mean, isn't that my right as a business owner?
I think you're mistaken that profit. There is no robbed of profit. I think that's a misconception. People aren't going to take your profit away from you, maybe a percentage of it, but not your whole profit. Being an entrepreneur is someone who takes chances, invests on maybes. And
yeah, but that's exactly Peter's point. And I'm a member of NFIB, and their newsletter from a week ago said that small business owners are feeling a little bit better about the economy, but they're not feeling good enough to invest in equipment, which is what you just said, Dave. And so they're not super confident.
I went and looked up the article you were talking about what companies do with their cash. And basically the answer that they put is many hold it abroad. What they're talking about in this article is your mega corporations, like multinational companies that have the ability to have property overseas, store funds in different avenues outside of the United States and hold it there so that they're not taxed. Well, guess what? If you have a high income tax rate in the United States, it encourages people to hold their money overseas.
But ironic part about holding your money overseas, as the value of the dollar has gone up and the value of their currency overseas has gone down, they've been hurt by the currency variations.
Now, let me ask you something, Dave. Are you a Ron Paul guy?
No.
I like Ron Paul.
Okay. Really? All right. Yeah. The reason I bring that up is because I've been convinced by some friends to watch Ron Paul's video that he's got on the internet right now. Okay.
Which one?
And basically he's saying that you need to get your money out of away from the dollar and into foreign investments where it's going to be safe, because his deal is that the American economy is going to collapse. It's collapsing under its own weight. So get your money out of America into a place where it's going to be safe. And that is outside the border.
If you talk with Pat Barkey or other economists, if the U.S. economy collapses, the whole thing will collapse.
I was going to say, what economy would he trust more than the United States?
Put
your money in China.
A question that we have is from a federal income tax perspective, what would be a fair share for the 1%ers?
Right, that's the big question.
Well, in your opinion, what would it be, Dave?
I'm not sure. I do know that balancing the budget requires that we bring in tax money.
I know, but the question we're asking people is, what do you think? What is your opinion of a fair percentage for people to pay for their income tax, especially the 1%ers?
I'm not a 1%er, so I can't speak for them.
Okay.
But I can say this, that we're running deficits, so someone has to spend some money or cut programs.
All right. Well, thanks for the
Either
call.
way.
Hey, thanks, Dave.
They appreciate it. And we have Gary up next. Hi, Gary.
Hey, Gary, you there?
Yes.
You're on.
You're on, sir. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Walt, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Gary?
Good. Listen, I agree entirely with that other caller that said that everyone should pay.
That was Mike. Yeah.
This business of about 40% of people not paying whatever is a bunch of bull, but I think everybody should pay, and as far as percentages go, they ought to figure out one percentage, whether it's 10%, 15%, that's what everybody pays. I don't care if you're making $10 billion, you pay that same percentage.
So you're a flat tax person.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I think is, people talk about these corporations. Well, these big corporations don't pay or should pay big taxes. Corporations don't pay taxes. People pay taxes. Corporations just push it off onto their
People.
Whoever buys their products and services.
Yeah, to the extent the marketplace will allow.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate your call. We're up against a break. Chuck and Ray. And we have a live. Whoop, there it goes. And away
Bingo.
we go. 721. We haven't even got into the minimum wage thing yet. So,
Oh, my gosh, yes.
So only a half an hour left of the show. What are we going to do? Yeah. Okay, we're going to come right back with more in just a moment. Whoa! 721-1290 is the number for Talkback. All three lines are full. We're going to get to Chuck, Ray, and Craig in a moment, but we have some Facebook comments first, John.
Yeah, we got some articles you can read on Facebook from some of our listeners. I'm not going to read the whole article on air, but I do have some comments. First one's up from Matt. He says, top 10% earned 45% of income, yet paid 68% of taxes collected through the IRS. The bottom 50% earned 12% of income, and yet paid 3% of taxes collected through the IRS. How is that fair? And then Christine says, it doesn't matter what tax rates are. Government only collects 19% of GDP. What matters is how tax rates affect the GDP. And I think here she's also referring to that Laffer curve. This is a really important thing for people to understand. The reason why it's important in recent economic history is because it could mean, if it proves out to be true, that when you lower taxes, you actually increase government revenue and have more money to spend on your programs. This is what was found not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken, with the Bush-era tax cuts.
And with the Reagan-era tax cuts.
I think the Reagan-era tax cuts are the better example.
But didn't they call that voodoo economics?
Well, they did. Anyway,
Well, voodoo, because it didn't fit our stereotype. It seems magical.
Yeah, it didn't fit the paradigm.
Yeah.
Mitchell says, I don't think people have as much disposable income. It seems that it has been grabbed by our government, which disposes it in ways that I can't fathom, faster than the speed of dark. And then he says, fair tax, baby. And that's the end of the Facebook comments.
Okay. Now to remind folks, the fair tax is kind of like having a national sales tax, right? Where everybody gets a certain amount of money sent to them, and then after that you pay you pay a sales tax on everything you buy, houses, cars, everything, right?
The problem with that is that the rates that it would take to replace all those other taxes would be about 17-20%.
And you're still going to need an IRS to
Oh, you'll need a bigger IRS.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can structure a sales taxes can be structured really complicated in very complicated ways. However, they're not that complicated to the purchaser. Unlike most of the taxes we do now, with all the paperwork and the deductions and the side avenues, it's harder to get out.
Believe me, you haven't been in the guts of a sales tax.
That's true.
Because
actually, I have run a sales tax cash register in Idaho, so I have technically been there.
But I can guarantee you, there will be lobbyists who'll say you can tax everything else, but don't tax me.
Right.
And so you'll.
But that pops up with every tax. That's not limited to sales.
How dare you tax my buggy whip sales? Yeah. They're a necessity. Right. All right, let's move on. Let's get Chuck on the line. Chuck, thanks for holding. Go ahead.
Chuck.
It's all blue smoke and mirrors, but you guys are doing a great job. 2 points. Number one, if you want to lower taxes, put the 93 million people back to work who you stole their jobs from, government. That's number one. Number two, the social engineers are taking over the economy. Start your small business. You can be rich, just like Bill Gates. All you have to do is start your small business when there's no cash flow in the economy to run your hot dog stand.
All right, Chuck. Thanks for the
Okay,
call.
Chuck.
Ray, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Hi there. Yeah, the reason that our current government doesn't want to, or any of the governments doesn't want to fix the tax problem, is because tax is controlled by taxation. I would think.
It is a method of social engineering, is it not? Walt?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and
Thanks, Ray.
and that's unfortunate because that's what makes our tax laws, so complicated.
Well, and the other thing is it's politically difficult to deal with taxes because someone in your state is going to get really pissed off when they don't get the deduction that they want, as you had mentioned before, right?
Oh yeah,
Philosophically, John has a problem with income tax, then property tax, then sales tax. I think you need to have taxes in a country to make it run.
yeah.
It's
You
a
need to pay
necessity.
for infrastructure.
You got
There's
to,
no doubt.
you got to, even just to build the White House and to keep it going. I mean, there's some fundamental things that need to be taken care of. But when you decide how am I going to choose which tax to use, or how I'm going to use the taxes, or how I'm going to structure the taxes, I think just ethically, from a philosophical perspective, it seems to me that income tax is the worst kind of tax because all of these taxes are a punishment. They're a stick. They're not a carrot. So when you're using a tax, what are you saying? When you're using a tax on income, you are saying, I'm going to punish you for being productive, for making an income. When you use a tax on property...
I hate to be a pessimist, but in Montana, they've tried a sales tax about every 10 years. And since I've lived here 65 years.
It's a matter of pride.
And what's going to happen is nobody, and I'm sure the country is the same way as Montana, nobody's going to go for a national sales tax unless you repeal the 16th Amendment. And
get rid of income tax.
The chances of repealing the 16th Amendment, wow, that's going to be like a one in a. Well, that's like winning the lottery.
It's slim and none, and Slim just left town. Right?
That's right.
but I think it's still fair. Like if you're going to keep the income tax around, minimize. Right now, it takes up, as you had mentioned before, what you thought, like 35% of the graph of the taxes that come in. Property tax is even narrower. Sales tax is far narrower than that.
Yeah.
If you're getting most of your tax revenue through this stream, which I think is patently the most unfair stream, the one that discourages what benefits society the most, then I think you're doing society a harm. Property tax is kind of the same problem. You're hurting someone's permanent investment. You're hurting and saying we don't want investments in property development, which is, I think, bad for society. Final one, sales tax. Of the three categories, sales tax seems like the best kind of tax because what are you discouraging then? Overwrought consumerism. You want to go buy a giant yacht? Well, you pay a giant tax. You want to go buy a giant building? You pay a giant tax. It's fair. That's fair. You know why it's fair? It's because each individual decides what's worth the value of spending their money on. That's why it's fair, because each individual gets to make the choice. If they don't think it's a fair tax to pay for that yacht, they don't pay it. They don't buy the yacht.
The problem is you're compartmentalizing here, because when you have an income tax and a property tax and a sales tax, I mean, 1 out of 3, that being a good thing is great, but you already have the 2 out of 3 that are sucking you dry. So that's why the people in Montana don't want a sales tax, because nobody is willing to take the political risk of getting rid of income and property taxes and basically roll the dice that a property tax is going to, make up all the stuff that those two taxes have given.
And I'm not advocating here that Montana should adopt a sales tax on top of these other two taxes. I'm saying from a national perspective.
Yeah, I'm talking philosophically speaking here.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the cost benefit of having all 3 taxes are bad for you. I mean, you're not getting
really.
You're not.
I want to keep my money.
I mean, from a personal standpoint, like if you could get away with not paying taxes, you'd probably be better off, right?
Yeah, we're way past a break. Craig, if you don't mind, I'm so sorry. We kind of talk too much, so we're gonna come right back. That's what it's a talk show. For
more of that
out.
cabin fever going on.
We'll be right back. All right, we're back on Talkback. Woo! That's John King over there, the rock and roll king.
Oh yeah, the
Walt
tax
Kero,
man,
joining us here this morning. 721-1290 is our number. I want to get Craig on because he's been waiting a long time. Craig, thank you for your patience. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, I'd wait forever.
Hey, thanks, Craig.
Okay, well, thanks so much. No.
Unless taxes are never spent on what they were supposed to be spent on. I mean, it's like we were all told we allow gambling in the state, property taxes would go down and they'd all go to the schools. Well, none of that stuff ever happened.
No, it was the teacher's retirement fund, if you remember correctly.
Well, I don't remember much correctly, just the way I want to see it.
Okay.
But, and then, nobody raises hell about this stuff, like, am I wrong? That's what gambling was, they told us it was going to be spent on, was the schools?
When they brought in the lottery, if I remember correctly, it was supposed to enhance the teacher's retirement fund.
Yes.
Oh.
But since most teachers are covered by the unions, they have their own retirement.
Well, the taxpayers fund the
Yeah.
teachers' retirement system.
Right, okay.
Well, apparently I only hear what I want to hear. Nonetheless, and then 4 callers back, the man was talking about the rich, they got to start spending their money, so to help our economy and everything else. Well, the rich is spending its money. It's too much of its money. The doggone government collects all the income, and then they spend it frivolously, and that's another reason we got to have higher taxes and stuff.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for the call, sir. Appreciate it. Peter, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Hi. Just a quick comment about the flat tax. That's brilliant. Taxing, taking $2,000 from a kid making $20,000 at McDonald's will totally fix the economy. What is that? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's not I don't think that's a fair description of most flat tax proposals.
Oh, so there will be exceptions built in, and then
so basically everyone starts out, they're basically given a certain amount of money.
Yeah, they're given a standard deduction.
Yeah, you're talking about the fair tax. He's talking about the flat tax.
Yeah, the flat tax is the one this is the one where everybody it's basically an income tax for everyone, right? Mm-hmm. And there's different ways of setting up a flat tax. The one that you described is extremely regressive and not one that I think many people are supporting.
Okay. An earlier call too about not being able to vote unless you pay taxes. That seems a little off base as well.
It seems a little medievally British.
Well, I mean, there is something to say. I mean, when the founders set up the country, right? Most states, by the way, each state kind of decided how you could vote or not vote, and most states had it set up so that you could only vote if you were an owner of property. Mm-hmm. And obviously this seems horrible to us today, but the heart behind it was you shouldn't be able to dictate what happens to your country unless you have a personal stake in the country. And they felt that the people that own property had the best personal stake. I think we can all agree that that's not the case. But there is something to be said. Like, we want people to be invested in the country. That's one of the heart behind the flat tax. Even if you only pay $1, there should be some kind of give. There should be some kind of commitment to the country.
Skin in the game.
That you're part of the deal.
Skin in the game.
Sure. Okay, well, thank you, guys.
Peter, thanks for your call.
Peter.
Call again. We appreciate it. It's the first time I think we've heard from Peter. We appreciate your call.
So we like new callers.
Do you know? Can you set up a good example of a flat tax as someone that promotes it would promote it? You kind of had it. You don't know how it. Okay.
No, I think it given what we have structurally from our government, from the federal U.S. Constitution and everything we have in place, I think the best thing to do with what we have, I'm not saying, unless there's a change in the Constitution, I'll just take what we got right now. The best alternative would be a major rewrite of the existing code and simplify it. And this is from a tax accountant's perspective, is that we could take the existing structure, simplify it, and get done what we need to do now without being such a huge bureaucracy. We could make it efficient.
I don't know. So, Walt,
if I was in charge and if I had the ability, I could make it efficient.
You could, probably. But you know what? Once you got there, first of all, you're not going to get there. But,
no.
But it's,
no, so I don't look like Lois Lerner or what's his face.
Remember, Walt. Even if you got there, you're one member of Congress at worst, Senate the best, maybe the president, and your ability to influence legislation is pretty minimal.
That's right.
I mean, you could stand up there and try to filibuster something, but that doesn't move your legislation along. It only halts legislation. That's the most power you have.
All right, we're up against our last break. It's a 1-minute break. So, Bill, if you'll hang on, we'll get you on in 60 seconds. I know. What?
We've got a magic wand.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that. We'll be right back. Mm-hmm. All right, 721-1290 is our number, and we appreciate you joining us this morning here on Talkback. John King, I'm Peter Christian, Walt Kero joining us, and you have a Facebook comment before we get to
I
Bill.
wanted to read a quick description of the flat tax from a proponent's point of view, okay?
Sure.
Proponents claim that the flat tax system would be so much simpler that it would result in considerable savings to all parties. The time and energy businesses and individuals spend annually in preparing tax forms would be greatly reduced. Now, Walt, I'm going to pause for a second. Can you fill us in on the time spent on tax forms?
Billions of hours.
How much money does a regular CPA get paid for one of those hours?
Oh, on average in Montana, probably $200 an hour.
And I would guess that Montana's probably on the low end of the pay scale for CPAs.
If you go to Seattle, it's probably double that.
Okay, so billions times hundreds, you get the picture. All right, here we go. As would the cost of government collecting revenue. The Internal Revenue Service, for example, could be substantially downside with tax returns requiring no more space than a postcard. Flat tax proponents also feel that a flat tax would discourage government spending overall while actually increasing tax revenues, as has been shown to happen in the Russian Federation after it moved to a flat tax in 2001. Several of the Baltic countries also have flat tax systems that have fueled significant economic growth since the mid-1990s. And in fact, there are 6 U.S. states that also have a uniform tax rate on all income. However, the concept is also widely criticized. So there you have it. There are flat taxes out there. People are using it in some places. And many of the places where they're using it have problems with rule of law and other issues, and yet have some success with it.
Hey, let's get to the phone. And Bill, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Good morning, gentlemen.
What's up,
I got
Bill?
a couple of things. One is, I believe it's now up to 48 or 49% of the American population doesn't pay any taxes.
Yeah,
they don't pay any taxes, or they get more taxes. They get more money back from the government than they actually
the earned
pay
income tax credit, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's only like about 51 to 52% of us paying the whole national debt. And I believe there should be some skin in the game with that flat tax. And also the property taxes is a joke because we have the right to own private property. And if you're getting taxed by the government on your property, you do not own it. The government does it. Because if you have your mortgage paid off and no debt on that piece of land, but you don't pay your taxes, guess who comes and gets it? The government. Those are my two big issues. You do not own private property in this nation anymore, like it was supposed to be set up on the Constitution. And almost half of us are not paying any taxes whatsoever.
Okay, that's good points. Thanks for the call.
Hey, thanks, Bill.
Appreciate it, sir. And let's get one more call in. Dave, go ahead. You're on Talkback.
Yes, my wife and I sat down and looked at a woman, a single mother with one child, and child care, working 40 hours a week at a minimum wage job. And if she paid any taxes, like your callers always say, she should pay taxes. She would have no money to feed herself and her child after taxes or after child care and all the taxes and everything else and living expenses. She would cease to exist.
Well, I mean, taxes always take money, right? If you're only viewing at the issue in isolation as the taxing part, you're not going to get money from the taxes. The money that comes back to you is from redistribution from some other government program. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, there's not a property tax, income tax, sales tax, flat tax, or fair tax that's going to give that poor woman more money. Yeah, they're all going to take money.
Yeah, Dave, did you figure into that the additional child credit, tax credit, and the earned income tax credit?
Wait a minute. Those programs go away because it's a flat tax. Everyone has to pay in taxes. Earned income, those cease to exist.
Sure.
But,
yeah. I was just talking about the current system.
Yeah, what I'm saying with my little rant there before the phone call and I had to go. I think that people do a disservice to the discussion when they try to view and I'm not a flat tax proponent. I think it's probably better than most of the other systems, but again, it's based on income, and I dislike them philosophically. But I think it's unfair to kind of view flat tax with these tirades against how it benefits someone when you to step back and realize that none of the taxes help anybody that pays them. Taxes always take money. The way that the people sell the flat tax is usually with some kind of other redistribution mechanism that's not part of the taxing system. And I think that has to be considered if you're going to talk to someone fairly about it.
So are you going to tax workman's comp? You're going to tax municipal bond interest? If you do that, you're going to upset a whole bunch of apple carts. I mean,
oh, for sure. I mean,
millions of apple carts are going to get upset then.
Hey, Dave, we got to go. Thanks for the call.
Thanks, Dave.
We have a minute and a half. Catherine, go.
Just one little comment. One way to get around the problem that Dave was talking about is to have a minimum deduction per individual, like $10,000 per individual, below which is never taxed. Everything else is taxed at, 20%, something like that.
Yeah. Oh, and since we have you back, and God bless you, Catherine, what would you think would be a fair tax rate at the federal level for income tax? We'll ignore Social Security, excise tax, hot dog tax, you name it. We'll just talk about the income tax. What do you think's a fair rate?
I think 15 to 20%. Chile has 40%, and it's a flat tax, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Their economy is going great guns and has for a long time.
So at 39.6, you would have a real argument with President Obama by him saying that the rich should pay their fair share. So you would be saying that they're paying double their fair share now.
You mean Chile or what?
No, here in the U.S.
Oh, here. Yeah, they are paying 20. They're not paying their fair share, or they're paying more than their fair share, yes.
Well, so, Catherine, real quick, on your minimum deduction argument, that is one that actual flat tax proponents do use.
Right.
Including Mr. Forbes and others. Some of the flat tax proponents say a minimum deduction of $100,000, some $60,000, some $20,000, and then the higher bracket you go, the more percentage you have to tack onto the people over that. If you're one of the people in America that makes less than $100,000, that should sit pretty well with you.
Well, except that it when you don't have, you go back to the point where everybody should be paying something. But if you have a minimum of 20 or 10,000 per individual, it's kind of like that's the foundation. It's a floor beyond what the government can't take.
I understand, and we are almost out of time.
Hey, thanks, Catherine.
Okay, so real quick, Walt, folks want to get advice and counsel from a wonderful CPA.
Oh, yeah.
What do they do?
549-2288, KBA CPAs is our internet site. Okay. Thanks to the help from the folks here.
There you go.
Great website.
Okay, and tomorrow's fabulous radio program, John.
I believe we'll be talking with Dr. Wallach.
No, that's
nope.
The Lewis and Clark.
Oh, that's first, and then
right. Yeah.
yeah, that's first, and then.
Okay. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you.